Welcome everybody to the Fall 2020 Redlands Camera Club digital competition. This is our first one done digitally, and it's the first time we've had a fall competition. We have three esteemed judges. Frank will introduce them to you, and a few words of how the judging is done. Go ahead, Frank.
Good evening, everyone. Glad to see you all. The criteria for judging this competition are explained at great length on the Redlands Camera Club website, redlandscameraclub.com, and so I won't take time by going through that in detail here, but I do want to let you know about the caliber of judges that we have tonight. We're very fortunate in having as resources three of the very best photographic competition jurists in Southern California. They are in alphabetical order by height. Ralph Nordstrom, who comes from Orange County. Ralph is not only an exceptional landscape photographer, he teaches workshops. Many of our members have attended and participated in Ralph's workshops. He's also done programs for the Camera Club, and we're delighted to have him with us tonight. Welcome, Ralph.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
Steve Brazel is a radio personality in Los Angeles on KCAL and one of the best voices in that business. He's also most interested in concert photography and has developed quite a following for his exceptional work there. But it turns out that any kind of photography that he puts his hand to turns out to be really good stuff. So pay special attention to what Steve has to say about your work tonight. And last but far from least is Bob Fletcher of Norco. Bob is a very familiar face and voice to Redlands Camera Club members. Like Ralph, Bob conducts workshops, and many of our members have benefited from Bob's workshops all over the West. It's a delight to have Bob with us as well. Welcome to all three of our judges. We're delighted that you're with us.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Frank, and welcome, judges. We can get started with our first image, and I will announce the category and the title. The first image is called, it's in the close-up category, and it's called Open Wide Iris. And for comments on this thing after we score, we'll start with Bob. We have scores. Stand by for an average of 78.
Okay, I scored this an 80. Couple of little things that were distracting to me, and I don't believe it's my monitor. I see two little red dots there. Do the other judges see those?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not quite sure what they are, but they look like they're floating, and they could have easily been cloned out if that is allowed within this category. And also in the lower right corner, you'll see a lot of little white squigglies, which could have also been removed or at least toned way down. And the other thing that is extremely distracting to me, the yellow-white centerpiece is cut off. It should show all of it. I like the depth of field, somewhat limited, but looks like it has a nice focus, you know, a point of interest in the center. And I felt with a few improvements, I could go a little higher on it.
Okay, thank you.
May I make one comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, everything Bob just said. First of all, I just wanted to let the maker know, I love the fact that you did a very unique angle of attack on this flower. I like that you did that. It's unique to what I'm used to seeing in this. Just be careful with your saturation. The yellow is almost clipping, but then also your processing, if you look, the leaf on the left has a dark border around it, as do the ones at the top. So be careful of your processing that you don't accentuate lines around edges of things.
Okay, thank you. The next image is in the miscellaneous category, and it's entitled Layers. Layers. We have a score of 81. Steve, could you do this one, please?
Sure can. So I'm a 79 on this image, and there's a couple of things that could very quickly take me above an 80. First of all, to the maker, really creative use of your skills. I love the fact that you completely thought outside the box. You not only radialed the image, but then added the page flip effect to the image to get to your title, which was layers, and you even have the clouds on the back of the page flip. Very, very creative and very well done in that sense. The part of the area that is holding me back is you have a border around it that is almost like a gradient where it's fading out, almost like a line white vignette. And I think that detracts from the image more than adds to the image. I do like that you followed that through and it's actually on the back edge of the page flip as well. But I would love to see this presented differently with that edge, because I think my eyes are going to the edge instead of into the tunnel that you've created. So you've kind of lost your subject matter there. And that's the last thing I would say is it would be really interesting if this still had a subject. Even if it was that you superimposed or composited a person standing like a James Bond type effect, standing inside that tunnel. I just think if you were to look at this and think, what's my subject, would take you to the next level.
Thank you, Steve. The next image from the places category, Houston Creek Falls. We have a 76. Could I have Ralph review this one, please?
Well, for starters, I really like the composition on this. I like the placement of the waterfall, and I'm glad to have a landscape photograph to be able to do the first review on. I like the placement of the waterfall and the way the water is, the emotion that you captured in the pond at the bottom of the falls. I like where it is. The thing that distracts from me is that there are a lot of other elements within this photograph that have a strong visual weight, meaning the eye is drawn to them. And the rocks on the other side of the waterfall are very bright. And they could stand to be darkened actually quite a bit. Just so that the waterfall jumps out at you rather than being kind of blended in with the rock. Same thing with the background. That's also very bright. So the level of the tonality of this is all pretty bright, and it could be much, much stronger, and the waterfall would be emphasized more if it stood out. Whereas the rest of the scene was maybe half a stop, maybe even a full stop darker. But the composition, I really like the composition. I really like the effect on the pond where the splashes, the lights are going out.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Excuse me, Ralph.
Yeah.
The next image is from the open miscellaneous category, Lost World, Utah. And scores are in. Final score is 81. We'll leave this one to Bob to take.
I like this one. When it first came up, I like the fact that the peak is not centered, it's off center. And the shadows in the black and white are nice and deep. I have fallen in love with black and whites in the last few years. And then I noticed that, gee, look at I'm not sure what those are, but obviously they are long lost birds for a lost world. And I think it worked well together. I scored it an 83, and I really liked it.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Um, the next image is in the animal category, Seeker of Sweetness. An 82. Steve Brazel, would you comment, please?
So first of all, to the maker of this image, I'm going to start somewhere I rarely do, and that is your presentation. I love the subtle way that you presented this image with the black matting, the thin key line, a slight bit of matting inside the key line. That all draws me into the story that you're trying to tell here. And it's a beautiful story. I love the angle that you got. I love the timing that you got with both wings up. The eye is in focus. The placement of everything with a few exceptions. By the way, I'm an 83 on this image, and that's where the exceptions come in. So there's a couple of things that to me would have given this image more visual weight and more impact. First of all, both the bird and the flower are dead center in the 1x1 crop. If they were down a little bit, I'd rather have a little bit more above them and have them down closer to the lower third to give a little more weight to the image. But the other thing is just basic exposure and touch-up stuff. So I love the way that you blended the wings into the background with some noise and grain that looks very nice and clean and natural and blends in well. It's actually a neat effect. But the wing and the back of the head are definitely clipped and too bright. Control that exposure a little more, go a little under if you need to, and bring it back in post. The color on the side of the flower is same thing. It's a little bit too saturated and too hot, which also then really accentuates that there's a white dot in one of the side leaves and there's a white dot in one of the main flower leaves that I would take out. Those minor changes would have me probably above an 85 on this image. So it's great, great effort here. Keep that up.
Okay, thank you. The next image is in the animal category, Strutting Reddish Egret.
Ooh.
Final score is an 83. Ralph, this one's yours.
Yeah. Whoa. I love the detail. Oh my gosh. what just wonderful texture in the wings, in the neck. Yeah, this is just really an excellent photograph. Great positioning. I wondered whether or not the egret could have been moved just a tiny bit more to the right side, but I don't know if that would work. There is this one, I guess it's a feather that's sort of slinking down by the left leg there. I wonder about that, but I just love the texture in the wings and the neck and the position of the bird in the frame. Very nice.
Could I add a few things?
Sure, go ahead.
So first of all, everything he said, I when this came up, I think I even said out loud, ooh, because it has impact. I'm an 83 on this image, or 82 on this image, and I struggled even to get to the 82 because of these 2 points. First of all, I wish that water was not blowing out. If that water wasn't blowing out, it would really hold me a lot stronger. But the bigger thing is the bird's been cut out in places. And so if you look at the very tail end right above the leg, there's an edge on those feathers that's very, very unnatural and clear Photoshop work, as well as the texture laid over the bird itself being so strong. Less is more. So be careful of your sharpening. Don't over sharpen, don't over texture. And if you're going to cut out, there's no substitute for zooming in and making those look more natural than that kind of, I'm colorblind, but I believe it's yellowish feather at the very back of the bird's bottom. Has a very unnatural smooth edge to it. So just be aware of those, and I would have come way higher on this shot.
Thank you, Steve. And gentlemen, next image is from the open miscellaneous category, Ford GT. And it gets a score of 79. Bob, this one's yours.
Okay. I love cars and I love photographs of cars. And the impact on this one, initially, it's like, oh, wow, I really like that. But then I started looking at detail that was really distracting to me. On the upper left-hand corner, just above the black headlight, you can see what looks like a reflection of the landscape behind it. And that could have been at least smoothed out. And the same to the line off to the right of it, about 1.5 feet off to the right of it. And then if you look at the black headlight in the upper right-hand corner, there's a series of white dots up there. It looks like a reflection of a nightscape. Again, that could have easily been cloned out, just made the whole thing black. And then in the lower right-hand corner, it almost looks like a dent. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's just a reflection. But again, that could have been smoothed out to make it very even looking. My score was a 79, and had these been taken care of, smoothed out a bit, I could have easily gone up to an 83 in that range. But I love the impact of the image.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Next image in the places category, sign by the road. And we have a final score of 77. This one goes to Steve.
Let me unmute myself. I'm a 78 on this image. And in all honesty, I struggled to get to a 78, but the creativity of your thought of this sign kind of got me to the 78. Here's where I'm struggling. Because again, I think you had some really creative thoughts as you went into Narrow Bridge Ahead with the dam or whatever it is behind it. Everything is about light. We capture light, but light requires shadow. And this is a very flat lit, middle of the day image. And if you go back to this site at a better time of day where you have better light, almost the exact same shot, you'll get a better image. Same with just exposure settings. So the sign's exposed nice, but you need to massage the light a little bit. Take this into post and burn and dodge as necessary to bring that dirt path down that you're standing on in the front left corner. Bring the sky down or the blues down a little bit. The mountain in the background does not need to be nearly as bright as the hills that are in the foreground. So it's really give me the depth that lends itself to the message that's on there. And even better yet, it would be great if it was clearly a bridge that I could see that was narrow would really affect it. But really, I just think the image needs massaging. The barbed wire pole with wire on it on the left, I'd love to see more of that. Think about the message more. Give me some room and some massaging.
Thank you. The next image is in the open miscellaneous category, 3 storage tanks. And the final score is an 83. Ralph, this one's
Yeah, I gave it an 87, but this one really hit me. Really tremendous impact. I like the fact that the forward tank is in the center of the frame. This lends itself very well to a symmetrical composition. I am a sucker for texture, boy, and it's just wonderful in here. The detail in here. And then, it's just very dramatic. And I like drama, at least in my photographs. And so that's why I gave it the score I gave it. I like this one a lot. You might pick at the little disc that's above the left sloping roof of the foreground tank. I'm not sure what that is. Looks like it might even could be the moon, but I'm not sure. Probably not. But anyway, I just love the drama of this. I'm really taken by it. Nice photograph.
Okay, thank you. The next image is in the animal category. One leg stand. Thank you, Bruce. And this one goes to Bob.
I scored it an 81. I would love to have scored it a couple of points higher. What I love about the image, one is the reflection in the water behind him. It's almost translucent look. It gives it a pattern that you want to keep looking at a little bit. The one thing that kept me from going a bit higher was I felt I see a lot of detail in the bird, but I felt it was a bit underexposed, a third of a stop, a half of a stop, and there's no catch light in the eye. I think if it was brought up a little bit, the exposure, not that you'd give it any catch light, but I think you'd still see detail, and it would bring the bird out as the main subject. And right now I feel that the pattern in the background is competing with the subject, which is the bird. So I would love to go higher on it. I like the image, but I think with a little bit of work, it could go a lot higher.
Thank you. The next image is in the animal category also. Catch of the day. Scores are in for a 79. Steve, this one's yours.
Sorry about that. I was muted again. I'm an 80 on this image, and to the maker, I scored it an 80 almost entirely on the fact that you captured the moment, the perfect moment. Facing you, eye is there, catching the fish, splash in the water, love the moment. I really struggled to get to an 80, and in my head, I may have even gone too high. And here's why I say that. While you've got the moment, if you've got this raw image, I would go back and I would look at it, because some of the water drops that are above the bird's wings, going high up in the frame, almost look like noise dots. And even some of the splash down at the bottom looks more like a digital noise because it's over sharpened. So you've gone a little too heavy on the sharpening in those areas and taken out with the softness of what is water. In doing so, you've also kind of roughed up the edges of the fish. And if you look at the wing that is frame left, bird right, there is a halo around the top of the wing and the bottom of the wing, and that's all. And then when you get to the white part of the wing, it goes darker. And that's all your post-processing that's really accentuating the aberrations that are around the edges of the bird compared to the water behind it. So just be careful on your post-processing, and a shot like this would be great. Last but not least, it's a really tight crop, and that may be how it was shot, but I really wish that the tip of the wings were not cut off. I wish I had a little more room for the bird to fly in. But other than that, nice capture.
Thank you. The next image is in the close-up category. Feelin' glad. Final score, 83. This one's Ralph's.
Yep, I gave this one an 83. I'm having a hard time finding something to complain about. I love the composition. I love the emotion, the energy in this. And I'm going to say that word again, the textures in the petals there. I love the presentation. I just like everything about this. It's really wonderful.
Okay, thank you very much. Next image from the places category, red jacket. Final score, 77. And this one, can we have your comments, Bob?
Okay. When the image first popped up, I struggled with the title. And instantly I'm looking for a red jacket. And what I saw was a white jacket of snow. And I thought, why didn't they name it White Jacket? And then I saw the person standing over under the yucca tree or Joshua tree, whichever it is. And I thought, well, maybe that was a red jacket, but in a black and white, it doesn't show that. So I struggled with the title compared to the image. I like the image. I love the black and white, the clouds, the saturation in the trees. I think maybe the shadows could have been brought up a little bit. And if you wanted that person who maybe is in a red jacket to be the subject, they might have been a little bit closer, or the jacket might have been turned red and it would have really popped out. But I would love to go a little higher with the score if the title really gave me the subject. So I scored it a 79.
Thank you very much. Next image is in the open miscellaneous category, Blue Coupe. All right. Final score of 78. And Steve, this one's yours.
I guess I am after Bob. Okay. So I'm a 77 on this image. And again, I love car photography. I think that this is such, and again, somebody with a really kind of unique angle where you get a slight sliver of the engine compartment, but you can also see through the louvers on the side. Here's what's holding me back. There's parts of the car, like the fender, that look realistic, but then as you go back into the engine compartment and where the air filter is, you start to see almost a posterization comic book type effect, which could be looked at as a positive, except for the fact that I'm getting banding from a yellow car reflection in this particular vehicle. So I can actually see the wheel in the yellow car on the far right side, and that carries through past the louvers all the way to the front where I'm seeing the yellow reflection on the front, and they're posterizing, and that's really taking away from this. I realize how hard that would be to clone out. However, that can be done where you mask sample colors, overlay colors to just pull the yellow out. In fact, for that matter, you could use a frequency separation probably to pull that yellow out, and it wouldn't be as noticeable. But that's really holding me back because I'm almost not looking at the car you took a picture of. I'm wondering what that bright silver wheel and yellow car is. So again, clean up some of that. I think you've got a lot of great ideas here on your angle and your concept of subject.
Okay, thank you. Next image is in the places category, Rescue at Big Falls. Final score, 80.
I would,
Mr.
yeah,
Ralph.
I give that a 79. I would put this this photograph in a photojournalism or a documentary category, and I think as a photograph that documents that tells a story of a rescue with a huge waterfall behind it. From a fine art point of view, it would have some technical problems like the highlights on the dead tree there on the right and on the lower left. But I think the story is the important thing on this one. And I think the person being rescued, you can see his body there. It'd be nice if you didn't have to look so hard, it really blends in with the background. So a little bit of doctoring on this would be fine. But as a story as a photograph that tells a story, I think it's just great.
Thank you. Our next image is in the close-up category, Spring Bloom. Final score, 77. This one goes to Bob.
I scored it a 79. I so wanted to take it into a merit category, but a couple of things that kept me from it. One is it's cropped way too tight. Although none of the elements are cropped out, there needs to be a little bit more room around them. A key line would have really helped quite a bit. And I struggled with the background. As you look into this image, the top center is nicely in focus, but over on the left side, it goes out of focus. And I know the depth of it's not that much. I think I also see a bee or something in there. I see some antenna anyway. And I so wanted to take it higher, but I think if it were not dead center like it is, and maybe if it were tilted, the stem were tilted off on the right side or the left side, I think it would have dramatically improved the look of the image. So I scored it a 79.
Thank you. Next image in the open miscellaneous category, Where Eagles Dare. And we have a score of 82. Steve, your comments, please.
So I'm probably the bad guy on this one. I'm an 80. And let me just start by saying there is so much potential in what this maker has created here. I love what you put. I love where you put it. I mostly love how you put it. So the planet blends in so cleanly with the mountains. There's a little bit of a halo. The bird blends in with the planet beautifully. I love the way that you have the clouds blend into all of that and actually kind of go through the rings. Then you have this giant black square in the upper right corner where the planet kind of disappears, but yet there's light clouds below that black square before the mountain. There's a disconnect to me on what happened in that right corner, almost as though it was an afterthought. A lot of potential there. The hills, there's something with the black and white conversion on the hills to me that's giving them such an off-putting, almost gray, drab feel, which may have been your intent, but it just doesn't feel right with everything else that's in there. The space shuttle with the water, great idea. Love that you actually pumped the color on that you even put a texture over it. I kind of dig too, makes it have a painterly effect. But blend that smoke in. So the upper plume of orange that comes up on the left has a very hard edge to it. Blend that into the background, make it belong there. And you've got a lot of potential in this. And again, I'm an 80.
Thank you. The next image is in the places category, The Green Door. Score is a 77. Ralph, please.
There are a lot of really nice compositional elements in this one. I give this a 79. A lot of really nice compositional elements in this one. I really like the implied leading line from the steps that take your eyes directly to the door. The two pillars on either side of it frame it nicely. I think the things that I found a little distracting was in the upper right-hand corner. There's a little bit of an arch there, or the pillar there with looks like maybe a light fixture. It would be better if that corner was clean. And there's a little bit of stuff going on opposite that on the left side that is a little bit distracting. But the pattern that you have in the steps, that's wonderful. Like I said, the implied leading line that draws you into that. The pillars, all the vertical lines in the pillars give it a sense of strength and power. So I think that's a very nice photograph.
Thank you. Next image is in the animal category, Brunch. Final score, 77. And this one's Bob's.
I scored this a 78. I love the image, but photography is all about light, and your main subject is not in the light, it's in the shadows. And because of that, what feathers, white feathers you do see are blown out, and the feathers that are in the shadow are underexposed. There's no catch light, and the reflection is a silhouette. Silhouettes are great, but this wasn't intended to be a silhouette. The lighting is just on the wrong side. I do love the fact that the minnow that he caught, you can see the water coming out of the minnow's mouth. There's a lot
Love
of
that.
detail to it, but
That's
again,
awesome.
photography is all about light, and the light's just not there.
Okay, thank you. The next is in the open miscellaneous category, inside a Vulcan mind. Inside a Vulcan mind.
Meld.
Score of 84. And this one goes to Steve.
So inside a Vulcan mind meld, the Star Trek reference alone is enough to get me. And I was an 85 on this image. What did it get, an 84?
84, yes.
I hate to do this, but the maker of this image deserves a challenge on this. It's 1 point. I want to get it up to an 85. To me, let me do my comments really quick first. First of all, I love the symmetry. I love exactly what you did here. I've seen this type of an image before where the falling lines didn't blend in well as they were layered, and this is very well blended in. The fact that the peak comes up, there's something in it. There is one thing in it that makes me feel like it's off center slightly left, ever so slightly to the left. And I'm not measuring it. It could just be my eyes, but it feels just a little off center, and I wish it was dead center. But the effect of the eyes, the nose, the mouth, very, very creative, beautifully executed, deserves an 85. What keeps me from going above an 85 is, excuse me, spacing. I wish that there was more space above the top, below the bottom. Let me see the peak at the bottom too, even. But very good image challenge. I'd like this to go to an 85.
Okay, Frank, the procedure is to rescore and then comment, or do we have other comments first?
Comments first and then rescore after the rebuttal.
Okay, the other judges, please. Bob or Ralph?
I'll go first. I scored it an 82, and I was struggling to go higher on it. And I appreciate your challenge, Steve. I could easily go up and increase my score. I like the image. It's very symmetrical. The catchlight is in the eyes. It reminds me in some way of a little puppy dog with
Yes.
that's excited and his hair is just flopping around, and somebody caught that moment. And I do like the image, so I have no problem increasing my score.
Okay,
And I gave it an 85 also, so I don't have to change my score. No, I love this image. It's just so much imagination, so much
Yes.
creativity. Just exudes. It just overflows with imagination, and I love that about it. Then its execution is so beautiful. So I'm happy to stay with my 85. Maybe I'll make it an 86. No, I think I'll stay with 85.
okay, judges, rescore, please.
Steve gets a rebuttal if he wants it.
Oh, yes.
Nothing to
Steve.
say. Everybody seems to kind of agree. It's just, to me, it's a very inviting image. I would love to see this thing printed on like a Beretta paper, or even a metallic paper would be awesome.
And my apologies for misreading the title. It was Inside a Vulcan Mind Meld. Left off the meld. So the rescoring is in, and it's an 85. The next image is from the close-up category, and it's Pink Rose. Final score is a 77. Ralph, please.
And this is mine. This is another one that has just a tremendous amount of imagination and creativity in it. The petals are luminescent. They're glowing. That's just amazing. There are, however, a couple of distractions, starting with the upper left-hand corner. The fact that that the petals don't extend all the way to the corner. It's got a lot of visual weight up there, and that was the second thing I looked at. Almost immediately was my eye was drawn up to the upper left-hand corner, and we don't want the eye to go there. We want the eye to stay with especially with the pistils and stamens. And then there's the lower left-hand corner. There's some bright areas there, and the same thing with the lower right-hand corner. And the eye is attracted to the bright areas, and so it takes it away from this really amazing thing that's going on in the middle. So I gave it a 78.
Okay, thank you very much. The next image is from the close-up category, California Cactus. Final score is 77. Bob, this one's yours.
I scored this a 79. I liked the idea of what the photographer was trying to do, but what I struggled with was not only what was in focus, the flower, but what was partially in focus, almost in focus, is the cactus off to the left. You have some needles that are trying and they're struggling to be in focus. The green plant is in focus, and I think had the presenter either shifted the camera to the right and really concentrated on the open flower and really thrown those out of focus in the background, or brought them into the same plane as the flower and thrown them in focus, it would have been better. It is a good effort, really good effort, that with a little bit of thought put into it, to me, it could go into a higher category.
Okay, thank you very much. The next image is in the photojournalism category, Coupe Fire. And the score is 77. This one's Steve's.
Okay, so I am an 80 on this one, and I probably was being generous because I love the photojournalism category, but to the maker, I think you captured a really nice moment. I love the fact that the firefighter is just getting to the truck, the door's open or being closed possibly as he's getting out. I suppose that could be looked at either way. I love the what's in focus. Your choices on your exposure on the whole were pretty good. You've got enough depth of field that Coupe Fire Department, even on the side, is readable, on the door is readable. The flag and the number 1 are readable on the grill. All of that's really, really good. Here's what kept me from going higher, and even where I struggled getting to where I am, and that is just your post-processing. Yes, it's photojournalism. Photojournalism does not mean without thought, right? It's not just capture a moment. When you're doing photojournalism, what you leave in a picture, what you leave out of a picture are both equally important. So in this particular case, the really tightness of the rear view mirror on the right side, but a lot of room on the other side to leave in a very, very bright BMW in the background, I would fix that. And the way I would fix it would actually be give more room on both sides so that I saw the whole car, and then bring the brightness down. In photojournalism, you can generally color correct, white balance correct, dodge, and burn. So bring down those highlights on the top of the vehicle here on the road. I would bring the road down, and I would bring that car in the background and the trees down, while at the same time, I would dodge the firefighter in the front to bring more attention to him. Just again, massage the colors. That's generally allowed in photojournalism.
Okay, thank you, Steve. At this point, we're going to give the judges a bit of a break here. We started out very early trying to get all of our technical bugs worked out, and I appreciate their patience for it in the beginning. So why don't we have a little break and everybody be back here about 8:10. Judges, if you would just type in the chat when you return, we'll be ready to go. Thank you. Okay, the next image is in the places category, Ultralight over Redlands. And we have a score of 79. Ralph, this one is yours.
Okay. This one has a lot going for it. The ultralight is in a very prominent position in the frame. There are, and it's moving into the frame. That's always nice, rather than exiting. There are opposing diagonal lines which give it balance. The lines are in the rims, the ridges of the layers back there. As well as the diagonal line in the line of rocks in the foreground. That's really nice. So it's got a lot of really, really nice balance. And then, of course, the snow-covered mountains, you know, a lot of times the landscape photograph will benefit from a white point and a black point. And if the snow is clipped, which I don't know it is or not, especially that one large patch. If it's clipped, I don't see that as a really big problem. It uses the full dynamic range of the medium, which is very nice. The foregrounds, the immediate foreground's a little bit on the dark side, but then that also then doesn't draw the eye away from the ultralight. So I think this is really nice, and I gave it a 78.
Can I throw in one comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Watch your sensor spot. So if you look around the sky, there are little black dots, fairly pronounced black dots across the entire sky. So go in and clean those up. Everything he said on the good side, clean those up and maybe even bring some of the shadows up on the person's face, I think would help, but mainly those sensor spots.
Okay, thank you. The next image is in the open miscellaneous category, Tiger Lily.
We're still on the
Great,
title slide.
great
so-
midtones.
Yeah, we
great
got
mid-
it.
Great midtones. Sorry
That's
about
really
that.
great.
There we go, Tiger Lily. Final score, 77. Bob.
I scored this a 78. I like the image. The main problem with me was that the tiger lily blended into the background too much. I think you had either a longer lens been used or not quite sure other fixes, but it's a good snapshot, and that's how I scored it.
Next on the list here is from the open miscellaneous category, Fixer Upper. Final score, 76. Steve.
So I am a 76 on this image, and I love photographing dilapidated buildings. There's just something, Ralph has used the term texture a couple times tonight, and there's a texture in old beat up buildings that you just don't get anywhere else. And I love that you got the texture here, and the angle you chose, you're accentuating the texture. But here's where the image is, I don't want to use the word uncomfortable to look at to me, but there's something disconnected to me with the color of the image. The side panels, I know what those side panels would look like in real life, even with the rust or the debris and moss on the roof, the windows. I don't know if it's just that it's underexposed and you need to bring up the exposure and the highlights to make it pop a little bit more, but it almost feels like the white balance is off. And then add on top of that, the processing, bringing the sky down. doesn't really match. There's some disconnect in your processing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I would revisit this same shot and I would think about what you leave out. Like, I don't need any of that ground at the bottom. The patio area, yes, but the ground in the front that's kind of cracked and debris ridden, I don't really need that. Crop that up or bring the sky down and really, or for that matter, do a tight close up on the side of the building in the window. There's a lot that you could do to accentuate your title. But to me, mainly it's the color correction that's needed.
Can I add something?
Please do.
I certainly agree with what Steve said. In fact, I would take the color correction even further. First of all, the blue color imparts kind of a calm, peaceful feeling to this. You've got kind of a cyan in the doors, and you've got a dark blue in the sky. And that conveys peace and quiet. It doesn't convey something that's falling apart and needs to be fixed up. I think this would make an outstanding black and white image.
Yes, that would be awesome.
It really works. The color is opposite to what you're trying to convey here.
Yeah, black and white, this would be really neat.
Okay, the next image on the list is in the animal category. Vermillion Flycatcher Twofer. And we have a score of 79. Ralph, this is yours to discuss.
Yeah, I like the colors. I like the size of the bird in this image. The bird dominates the image, but I just have a devil of a time figuring out what's going on in here. A twofer. I'm trying to figure out what that is that's coming out of the bird's beak. So it's confusing to me, and that to me takes away part of the effectiveness of this. Like the background, nice out of focus, and setting the orange against the green, that's nice. That you've got some complementary colors there, near complementary. But I just was squinting, trying to figure out what was really going on here. So I ended up giving it, a 77.
It's not self-evident, but I believe the title is referring to the fact that the bird has caught two mating
Yes.
damselflies or whatever they are.
Okay.
There's a
Okay.
second one hanging off the bottom of the first
I
one.
figured, I
Right.
figured it had something to do with it, but I couldn't. Yeah, it was, my brain couldn't figure that one out.
Can I add one quick thing?
Please do.
Check your focus. I don't know. It appears here that it's front focused instead of on focus or back focused, but the branch is your focus point, not the eyes. The eyes are soft to me, and I really need the eyes and the beak and those flycatchers to be in focus.
Okay, thank you. The next image is from the places category. Hike on the trail. Score of 84. And Bob gets this one.
I guess I'm the bad guy. I scored it an 82, but I really liked the image. As a landscape image, it's okay. It's a decent landscape image, but the title is what really worked for me, and the placement of the hikers, the fact that you have the trail leading up to them, and the fact that you have layers of dark and light there. You can't see any detail in the hikers. They're silhouetted because of their clothing, but they're layered against the snow in the back. And had the maker moved right or left too far, they would have easily disappeared in there. So to me, it looked like there was some good thought given to placement of the subject, which was the name of the subject, the hikers. And the rest of the image is okay. I don't think it's, if it was just a landscape, you would have looked at it and said, oh, that's nice, and looked at the next image real quick. But I scored it an 82, and I think it was well done.
Next image is in the people category. Redrocks Hikers. Redrocks Hikers score 77. And that looks like goes to Steve.
So I am a 77 on this shot. And that's probably colored by the fact that Red Rocks is one of my favorite places to go. I'm in Vegas often. And if you've never been to Red Rocks in Vegas, this is what it looks like. It's the rocks are just awesome. I struggled to get to a 77, and here's why. You called it hikers on the trail, but I see only half the hikers. They're way bleeding off the bottom edge. If that's going to be the case, I'd really like to see them in the frame. That would be a key thing to me. The other thing is you swapped out the sky. If you didn't swap out the sky, then you did something to the sky to make it look swapped out. There's a white halo along the edge of the rim. And I've been to Red Rock so many times that I know those type of clouds don't generally happen at Red Rock, and they're the wrong perspective for what you're looking at. So these clouds almost look like somebody shot them not straight up, but close to it. There's no distance. There's no perspective to the clouds as there is to these hills. So if you're going to do that, you got to choose the right sky. If it is the natural sky, you've got to process it in a way that fits the rest of the scene, and don't let that white halo come in across the edge of the mountain, even if you got to go pixel by pixel and clean it up. But if you, in this image, even left a gray sky or the sky natural and just waited for the hikers to be out of the way and just called it Red Rocks, this is Red Rocks. This is inviting. I want to walk down the trail. You can use the trails as leading lines, but cutting them at mid thigh, it loses me on the title.
Okay, the next image is in the animal category, walking on water. Score of 81. Steve.
I just did the last one.
I think it's
Yes,
mine.
you did. Yes, you did. So that means Ralph.
Whew, saved.
Anything that brings so much joy and makes me laugh just at looking at it gets an 83. This is just really wonderful. Yeah, maybe a few technical exposure issues in the head and the neck, but the splash of water balances out this bird. There's so much energy and emotion and motion. It's just wonderful. And that splash of water just kind of fixes everything. 83.
Okay, thank you very much. Next image in the open miscellaneous category, People's Bank. Score 79. Bob this time.
I scored this a 79. The one thing I struggled with immediately was it's actually Citizens Business Bank. I used to bank there, and yet the title says People's Bank. So I struggled with the title. The shot itself is well done. The walls don't fall in or out. Looks like somebody spent a little time setting up the shot, the lens, or it was done in post-production. The exposure is well done. And I would like to have gone a little higher. I love the element of the tree in the upper left-hand corner. It sort of helped frame it. I struggled a little bit with the fact that the branch covered up part of the name, and you could have simply maybe moved to the right or moved back and right a little more to help correct that, or taken a little chainsaw and cut it off. But you know, it's a good average shot, and I scored it a 79.
Okay, thank you. Next image from the close-up category, only 2 wishes left.
Score 78.
Oh, 78, thank you. This one is for Steve.
So I am at a 78 on this one. And when it first popped up, it had impact, which is a key component to me is the visual impact part of the image. The monotonistic bluish color started to lose me very quickly until I kind of bought into the fact of almost looking at it as an animation scene where you might see small people climbing these stalks. But it's so unnatural color-wise that I almost had to buy into that first. That said, once you buy into the effect, the texturing, the layout, the composition I like the two at the top. I like the angle of the stalks. I like everything you did there. I wish that there was more room. It feels tight, both on the top and the two sides next to the flowering at the top. The biggest thing, though, is the highlights. There is so much blown out white in this image that it loses a lot of impact. If you've got the raw and that is recoverable without turning gray, if you can recover that to natural, I'd love to see less highlight and more of that contrast in those areas. And that would bring me up to a merit and more into the above average category.
Next image is in the animal category. I've got you, my pretty little one. Final score at 84.
Yeah, I was with the group. I was scored an 84 on this one. This is one of those images where you would like to see more of the reflection, but son of a gun, this is wildlife photography we're talking about, and you cannot set up a camera on a tripod and carefully compose the image and then wait for the what is that, you wait for the bird to grab the fish and toss it into its mouth. So we pass that on, but the whole rendering is just so wonderful. There's a lot of beautiful shadowing in the bird, and then of course this is just a magical moment, and I had to laugh again. So 84.
Can I make one statement real quick?
Please.
I would have, first of all, to the maker, beautiful image, everything he said. I would have fought tooth and nail for this to be in the 85 category if the bird wasn't dead center with so much space above. And the white matting is super distracting when you have a white bird against a light background. And last but not least, in the reflection, the beak and the fish both have little black dots next to them that aren't in the original image but are in the reflection. Those three things, this would be a 90 almost if those were fixed.
Thank you. The next category, or next is in the places category, evening walk. Final score is 77. And Bob, this one's yours.
It is mine. Initially looking at it, I liked the image. It has good tonality to it, good color. I love the highlights on the plants in the upper left-hand corner. It is framed very well. The thing that really I struggled with is the path, which is a great leading line, leads me right out of the image. I follow that line and boom, it makes you want to know what's to the right of that path. And it doesn't keep me within the image looking at all of the really nice things in the image. If that path had been flipped and led me into the shadow area right behind the plant that's highlighted, that would have been perfect. But in this case, it leads me right out of the image. So I scored it a 76, by the way, if I didn't say that.
Thank you.
Yeah. My comment, I had the exact opposite feeling about the path. First of all, it's a beautiful S-curve, and S-curves are just so graceful. And for me, the path invited me to go further into that garden and explore more. So it didn't take me out of the image, it drew me into the image. then I also like the golden hour light up on the tree trunk and on the pampas grass, whereas the rest of the garden is in open shade. So I just had a different, I mean, that's what makes a horse race, right? We have different ideas about how we respond, and we all respond in our unique and individual and a very personal way.
You're welcome to challenge it, Ralph, if you
Oh,
want.
no, I don't want challenge. That's fine.
All right.
Okay, in the next image is from the open miscellaneous category, legs. Final score is 78. Steve.
I got it right. I'm a 78. So this is one of the hardest. I'm just going to say it because it's what I think everybody's thinking. This is one of the hardest images I have ever judged because there's a lot in here that I love, and yet there are some things that are taking me out. So it almost reminds me of cutting things out of a magazine or newspaper and pasting them on. Clearly, the white chair that the legs are on was cut out, put on this background. The white legs are overexposed, which is a disconnect for me that everything else is black and heavily underexposed. The other thing is the body is cut at the waist. And generally, you want to avoid cutting anything at a joint, and the waist is effectively a joint. It's not just legs, it's legs in a groinal area. So it's a little bit unusual to me in that sense. I'm not saying I don't like it. It's just a little bit of a mismatch. If that was gone though, the chairs and the table I dig. Even the chairs and the table, the way that they've been processed, however, have kind of a blotchy effect on them. And I'm not clear if I like it or I dislike it, but I can tell you, if that was a square crop around the tables and chairs, I'd print it and hang it on my wall just as it sits without the legs. So again, I'm at a 78 on this, but a couple of things changed. This could go crazy for me on a fine art level, which meant nothing. I have no idea what I said.
All right, the next image is from the animal category. Bird on a tree. Score of 76.
This is a really, really busy image. I gave it a 78 because of the story that it tells. It looks like a scrub jay, and it's in this just really inhospitable environment and just sitting there, calm as can be. Well, actually, we have bird feeders in our backyard, and it's fun to watch the scrub jays. So I think this is well. Normally, one would try to isolate and simplify, get in tighter and make the bird prominent. Although the bird stands out, the blue stands out against the basically a monochromatic background, not black and white, but monochromatic background. And the bird really stands out, and that's nice. And so it's got the visual weight to say, okay, yeah, this is about the bird. But I think maybe getting in a little bit closer, you could still retain some of that, the chaos, the chaotic twists of twigs that it's sitting on, and make the bird a little bit more prominent.
Okay, thank you. The next image is from the places category. Desert Friends. Scores an 84. Bob.
I scored this an 85. I like this image. It's simple. I love the title. I love to look at things. I love to look at clouds and see things in clouds. And I looked at this and I see a penguin standing there holding a conversation with his friend or chewing out his friend. I'm not sure. But I really liked the image, the fact that it's framed very well. I might have cropped a little more out of the bottom. Not necessarily cropped the whole image tighter, but cropped a little bit of the foreground out, maybe 6-8 inches of it. But overall, I think it tells a great story.
This is behind campsite 10 in Jumbo Rock
Yes.
campground in Joshua Tree National Park. So wonderful trees. If you want to go photograph it, that's where it is. It's in Jumbo Rock campground and behind campsite 10.
Thank you. The next image is from the animal category. Peacock. Score of 80. Steve.
So I'm an 80 on this image. What a beautiful bird. What beautiful texture in the breast and neck area of the bird. Nice highlight on those feathers. It's just really, really nicely done there. Colors to me are not oversaturated too, which with this color palette would be easy to push that too far. A couple of things kept me from going above an 80. Number one, I wish there was more nose room. Yes, I understand you're getting the back of the bird, but I wish there was a little bit more in front of that bird. Even if you cloned it and built it yourself, I'd be actually okay with that. It would just give some breathing room for the bird. The back of the bird, the light is, compared to how it is on the neck, how it is on the head, the back of the bird is very flat light. So I would actually bring that down and gradiate the shadows going back to where the edge of the frame is darker. You could even just do that with a vignette or a gradient tool on that side. But the oddest thing to me is I can see the photographer in a white billboard sign, like an A-frame sign in the eye. And I mean, you can see the silhouette of the photographer and there appears to be a ground sign in the eye. And I would have probably darkened most of that and made it more of a catchlight look so that it didn't appear to be a bird in captivity. That's just me. Lastly, your blue key line. I understand what you were doing. Great idea sampling out of the image, but it's really standing out, distracting. So I would not do a bright key line like that. But again, I'm an 80 and I love the gentleness that you treated this bird with.
Okay, thank you. The next image is in the open miscellaneous category. Racing past the flag. Score of 81.
Boy, does this ever tell a story? And my gosh, the amount of work that went into creating this image is just amazing. The flagpole, the American flag, just in the perfect position. It feels very harmonious. And then you've got this arc of riders pedaling by, and they're all in color. This is really, really well executed. There may be a few little issues on the very bottom of the frame. A couple of things there that kind of stand out. But well, you've got the community, you've got the church, you've got the office buildings. This is really nice.
Next image from the HDR category, Haunted High School. Final score an 87. Bob.
This is an excellent image, and I scored it an 86 in the excellent category. I look at the way it's framed, the texture, the overall tonality, the light coming in the doors and windows, the way it's cropped. The key lines might be a little too strong for me. I might have only done one of the key lines, but whoever made this did I thought, a great job on it.
May I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
Really short. This is how you do HDR right. You don't remove the mixture of light and shadow. You help the light and shadow. There is a bright spot on the ceiling top left as the light is coming from behind us. The light coming through the door is still bright. The light on the right wall is bright, yet there's shadow where it needs to be, and you can see dark doorways in the far back. The one area, and I'm an 88, by the way, on this, I would have made this a 90 except for probably one thing. You trued this image vertically. You did not true this image horizontally. Bottom right corner, look at the edge of the step. There's more floor on the right than there is on the left. Same with the wood that's under that first pillar by the stairs. It is not trued horizontally, and same with the wood at the top center of the image that is the underneath of the staircase. If you had trued that image horizontally, this image would be a 90 to me.
Okay, thank you. In the open miscellaneous category, Roy's Motel and No Wise Comet. Roy's Motel and No Wise Comet. Well, Bruce, I'm going to need a manual readout from that one.
I'm sorry?
I've got a 0 on the score here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got it.
It's in there now.
79. This is Steve's.
Okay, so I wanted so badly to love this image when it popped up. I'm a 77. When it popped up and I saw the comet, it was, yes, this is going to go high. And then things started to change in my mind. So there was a glow around the Roy's sign that has been hard-edged almost, not hard, but very lightly feathered edge, cut out around it to have the sky behind it. There's parts of that where it is see-through, like above the R, you can see one of the stars coming through an outer band of that haze. And then it goes to a solid haze in between everything else. Just the way that that's cut out, wrapping up around the neon, then back down around, is so obvious Photoshop that that's going to hold me back. The idea of any Photoshop work, or for that matter, darkroom work, is to process an image and accentuate the image to tell your story. If I see that Photoshop work, I'm out of the image immediately. So there's just no substitute for proper blending there, but you've got the image. Go back and blend that in better, because other than that, great. I do wish compositionally it was different. Sign to the right, a little more on the left, that type of thing. But let's start with what's around the sign and getting that to blend in.
Okay, thank you. Next image is in the HDR category. Those were the days. Score of 76. And this one goes to Ralph.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. I shoot a lot of HDR because, well, I'm in really extreme lighting conditions a lot of times. And I was just questioning whether this really needed HDR. Granted, the setting sunlight, the golden hour light on the teepees is beautiful. And the mountains behind it, they are in beautiful light. I'm not sure that it was so dark in the foreground that it would have required HDR. Having said that, the HDR was not taken to the point where you got grunge, which is a nice thing. I mean, grunge works sometimes, but this wouldn't have been one. The composition's nice. The upper left-hand corner, you've got a satellite dish that's showing up there. It would have been nice to get rid of that and bring it back into the Route 66 period of time. So I gave it a 78.
Okay, thank you. The next image is from the places category. Desert Comet. Final score is 78. Bob.
I scored this a 77. I wanted to score it higher, but the one thing that kept me from it is the focus. it's not crisp. And when you're photographing stars, a couple things that you cannot do is have them either be elongated unless you're doing star trails, or they sort of melt. And these look like they're just not crisp. The exposure on the comet is a little bit hot, but I know this comet was tough for a lot of people to photograph. The fact that you have some detail in the foreground is nice. It's just enough to see that there is something in there other than just a silhouette. And I wanted to go higher, but I just had a tough time doing it.
Okay, the next image is from the animal category. Cross-beaked kiss. 84. Steve, that one's yours.
Okay. I'm at an 84 on this one. And I sat here trying to get myself to an 85 or higher. Anytime I'm close to another category, so 84 being above average and 85 being in the excellent category, I try and justify in my head why I'm not going that extra point to 85. And there's a couple of things, because this image is very, very well done to the maker, by the way. Great timing. The wing being up saves the balance of the image. So, you know, anytime something is dead center, that's dangerous unless it's a reflection or something like that. But here you have the reflection. The bottom of the birds is kind of dead center, but that wing sticking up so clear lends weight to the top and then the reflection down below. The white matting, again, your eye always goes to the brightest spot in any image. And so you're giving me a bright spot outside of the image to draw my eye to. And it becomes almost eye fatiguing after a little bit to have that much white around it. It's like looking at a makeup mirror in a way. So I would change that. Other than that, there's a little white dot in between the wing and the head. That needs to come out to go to the next category. The bubbles in the water on the far right-hand side could be mellowed out a little bit from the highlights. That would bring it. And what is really keeping me down, and it may be natural, is the brownish earth tones in the right and going across the top, but not right behind the bird. Right behind the bird is a certain tone, and then you've got those earth tones coming down and around. And on the right-hand side, they're blotchy there. I would try and even that out in some way. I'm not bothered by it's not behind the bird, but the blotchiness, I'd try and fix that a little bit. Even if it was natural, it's drawing my eye trying to figure out what was there. But really, other than those little things, those are minor. It's very well executed, and I'm an 84.
Okay, the next image is from the open miscellaneous category. Blue Hour at LLU. Score of 77. Oh, this one is Rouse.
Yep. This is a composition about diagonal and vertical lines, and the colors too. You've got some relatively complementary colors there, blue and kind of a soft, well, I'm not sure what you call that color. Anyway, but here's the thing. My eye goes to the top of the frame where that bright window is. And that's what takes that takes me away from appreciating the diagonals and the verticals in this and the abstract quality of it. So if I were working on this, I would work really hard to tone those that big bright spot up there. I tone that down so that it's not saying, hey, look at me, forget the rest of them. But I like the idea.
Okay, next image is in the animal category. Feathered Clash. We have an 88. And this one is for Bob to talk about.
Wow. I guess I'm the bad guy. I scored this an 83.
I'm dying
When
to
I
hear
first
this.
saw the image, I really liked it. I think the title fit it because I struggled to look at that back bird with most of its head hidden by its wing. And then I looked at that bright spot on the very top of its dark wing. I'm thinking, no, that could have been cloned out a little bit. But they're obviously clashing. Two things that I really struggled with, and I wanted to take it to about an 86, was one, I felt there needed to be a little more room on the left side. That's the direction that they're all facing. And there's just about an equal amount of room on the left as there is on the right. And I felt if the maker had just either opened it up a little bit, or it would just be a little more pleasing image to me. And also, they're centered, which cuts the reflection in half. And I'm, for my taste, I like to see all of the reflection or none of the reflection, or very little of the reflection. In this case, the reflection is cut in half, and it could have easily been cropped and made a little more of a horizontal image rather than a vertical image. I love the crispness of the image. Everything on the bird seems to be sharp. There's motion, I know, so it must have been a relatively fast shutter speed because you can see the water droplets are frozen. Overall, I really liked it, but the room on the left and the reflections kept me from going above an 83.
And the final image in our competition in the open miscellaneous category, Fly the Friendly Skies. Score is an 81. This one goes to Steve.
So I'm an 84 on this. So just as we finish up tonight, let's just remember Steve ended up the good guy. There's some things that the maker in this image did that when it first popped up just really drew my eye. The painterly effect of the sky in the background, where it clearly is watercolor paint with the clouds on the right, as it were, are actually bare paper texture. And I love that. The fact that the birds are even brought in and made to look as though it's watercolor paint. Even at first I was like, well, you know, the top of the right wings, camera right wings are blowing out. I don't like that, but it's painterly. So I'm okay with that. In fact, the upper left wing, the painted clouds are even painted on top of the wing, which kind of emphasize the painting effect to me. I like that. There are some things that take me away. Again, with the white border, here to me it would have worked if the texture was outside on the matting and you just had a key line and that texture was on the outside white matting. That would be interesting. But mainly there's just a lot of brightness in here. And I wish that some of that in the birds and in the sky and the clouds was toned down a little bit to let the paper stand out more. But really interesting idea. And at an 81, again, you're up in the above average category, which is where I believe it should be. So well done.
Thank you. And that's
Steve was the good guy at the end.
our competition. Thank all the judges for having some really, really good comments. Want to remind everybody who's watching that I know for sure that Ralph and Bob have workshops that they'll be setting up once we finally get to go outside. And Steve, I don't believe you do workshops, do you?
I do on occasion. I do speaking on live music photography, and I've got a workshop coming up. It was supposed to actually be next spring in New Orleans with Rick Salmon and Freddie, who's a friend of ours that's a music and is a food and beverage photographer. And we've moved that now to fall of next year in New Orleans. It's a multi-day, multi-genre workshop. And then just the podcast. That's it.
So watch for Steve's podcast and listen for him on the radio. Thank you, everyone, for all you have done. Bruce, I think we have a best of show, do we not?
Yes. you do.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Okay, thought so. So that will conclude our competition. Thank you very much, judges, and everybody who participated. I'm going to stop the recording over here.